is that David's heart is so genuine towards God. These are just two illustrations of it, that God is rewarding him. It says David became greater and greater. Why? Why is that chart increasing where his influence is increasing? Why is he being promoted? Because it says the Lord of hosts was with him. Why was the Lord with him? Because he had a genuine heart. Leadership's important, but heart is even more important because that leader is only going to rise to the level that God in his providence allows, and the more that heart is turned towards God, the greater the level of blessing that can come. It's much like this, and I just want you to catch this with me. Promotion, think about David who was out in the sheep field when we first met him, and now he's living in Jerusalem. Promotion is of the Lord. It is absolutely true. In business, in life, in marriage, it comes through hard work. It comes through the blessing of the Lord. People often say to Jared and I, you guys are so lucky you got like 3 kids and they love Jesus and they're, like they're all doing good. You guys are so lucky. I want to slap them. Because you don't raise great kids by just luck, right? You apply truth. And then when you apply that truth, you're on your knees begging God to work in their hearts because you can do what's right as a parent and it's still not stick in their soul. Or when people say, you and Jared are so lucky, you've been married like 36 years, and it's like, wow, that's such a miracle. We were pastoring out in California, Church of 5,000. I was on the staff of this large church out there. Jared and I had been married 17 years. People were coming up all the time. You're like one of the longest married couples in our church. You're so lucky. How many of you know luck has nothing to do with it? Seriously, luck has nothing to do with staying married. It takes hard work. It takes forgiveness. It takes surrender. It takes obedience to God. It takes giving preference to one another. It means working through things that you don't like. It's just the way it is. And you could go on and on. David is constantly growing and growing and growing. Why? Because the Lord is with him. When I was a student in the Bible, I saw this phrase over and over and over, how the Lord is the one who brings blessing, whether it was Abraham or Isaac or Jacob or Joseph or now David. Do you remember when we first saw David? Where was he? He was out with the sheep, living underneath a tent. They didn't even call him for dinner when Samuel showed up, the prophet. Do you remember that? And they got the whole family together, and God tells Samuel, a prophet, none of these can be the king. They don't have a heart that's perfect towards me or this move towards me. And he got any more sons? Oh yeah, there's one kid way out there with the sheep. We didn't even invite him to dinner. And now he's living in the palace. And as you read down through chapter 5, not only is he king over all of Israel, God gives him victory over Jerusalem. And you say, how in the world does he bring that about? Well, he allows them to find the water shaft coming into Jerusalem. They make their assault. They sack the city. David builds now this amazing city of David. Now, this picture includes the temple, which isn't going to be built until the time of Solomon, his son, in a few years. But next week, we're going to see, as David is living here in the palace, he's going to say, how is it that I am so blessed of God that I live in a house of cedar and we have a tent up here for God? That's unacceptable. We need to build a temple. So that's why you got to come back next week. The bottom line is this, is in verse 12, David comes to this conclusion. David realized that the Lord had established him as king over Israel. Friends, this is so important. You and I need to look at the blessing of God, any blessings that you've got, wherever you're at in life, and you need to look at that and say, you know what? God has put me here for this time, this season. God is the one who's blessed me. And rather than being like Nebuchadnezzar and these other leaders in the past who are going to say, God, I did this without you. I can do anything. How many of you know you can't do anything? How many of you know I'll never be a hockey player? How many of you know that? I can't skate. How many of you know I'm never going to play, like on a basketball team like the Lakers or one of them? They're going to happen, right? But whatever the blessings that God gives you, realize this, it comes from the hand of God. David uniquely walked with God, loved God. He went through difficulty. He went through hardship. People hated him. People trying to kill him. People trying to assassinate him. And yet God's hands was upon him, and he recognized it as he was able to look back. Friends, I just want you to know, in a year you're going to look back, 2 years, 5 years, you're going to look back, and you're going to say, man, the Lord was really with me during those days. How many of you right now can look back in your life and say, man, the Lord has been with me in the past? Just raise your hand really quick. Look around. I don't know where you're at, because you might be sitting there going, man, I'm just so low right now. You're like in Ziklag, and you're just depressed. Strengthen yourself in the Lord. You're going to be able to look back, because as you have a genuine heart towards God, God orchestrates things, and he blesses his people.